I got some good news and bad news. I'm going to do the bad news first, get to the good news, and then we'll move along with the program here. Tell me if I'm wrong. I'm convinced that today the average family, the average middle-class family, thinks this town is completely rigged against them. They see bailouts for corporations. They see handouts for people who are able but unwilling to work, and they're stuck paying the bill. And they are fed up with it. They see companies cozy up to government, get special deals, special loans at the Ex-Im Bank. Companies cozy up to government and get special tax treatment and all kinds of. If you're in the favorite industry of the administration, the green energy industry, you get all kinds of loan guarantees and special breaks from the government. 7 of the 10 wealthiest counties are, guess where? Right here in the Washington, D.C. area. So the average family thinks the whole game is rigged against them, and they're stuck paying the tab. And I would agree with them. And they're looking for folks in Washington to stand up and represent their values, the values that made our country special in the first place. One of my favorite lines is a baseball player, Hershiser, pitcher for the Dodgers, took him to the won the World Series. Has a great line. He says, "Great things can happen to ordinary people who are willing to work hard and never give up." And I like that statement mostly because of one word. The word ordinary. If you stop and think about it, we're all just regular ordinary people. Nobody's any better than anybody else. In fact, one of the things that bugs me in life is when someone thinks they're special and they're better than the rest of us. We're all just ordinary people, all in need of God's grace. But the amazing thing about this nation is ordinary people have been able to do extraordinary things if they're willing to work hard and never quit. But today, for the first time in American history, lots of middle-class families are doubting the accuracy of that statement, and they're looking for people to stand up and fight for them. Now, the good news is there are folks in the House of Representatives doing that. Hopefully, we're going to have a few more folks in the Senate when this election's over. I think it's going to happen. I think the party I belong to, I think we're going to take back those 6 seats, and then that will help us begin to frame things. But it's worse than what I just described. It's not just that your money gets used for things you don't like. It's also your fundamental values and the liberties that you cherish, your freedoms, are under attack. I mean, you think about your First Amendment liberty, religious freedom. I mean, thank goodness the decision was 5-4, but it was only 5-4, right? The Hobby Lobby decision. Your Second Amendment rights are under attack. Respect for human life, respect for the institution of marriage and family. I mean, all those things are under attack from this administration. But probably no better example, and Tony referred to this in his introduction, probably no better example of your freedoms being attacked than what the Internal Revenue Service did for a sustained period of time, where it systematically targeted people just like us for exercising your most fundamental right, your right to free speech. But you think about the First Amendment. And this is why I've been so focused on this issue, because it cuts to what America's about. You think about the First Amendment, freedom of religion, freedom of the press, freedom of association, freedom of assembly, but your most fundamental right is your right to speak, and to speak in a political nature against your government, to petition your government. And that is what this administration set out to systematically and sustained period of time target and harass people for. And it is as wrong as it gets. And I just want to walk you through how serious this was and how it all started. Remember in 2010, when the president at the State of the Union address called out the Supreme Court right after the Citizens United decision, called out Judge Alito in the court right there. That's when it began. That whole year, the president, week after week, would say things about shadowy Tea Party groups, right? Remember, folks just like you. These strange group with with great sounding names who are doing all kinds of dangerous things. And it was not just the president, it was all kinds of Democrat leaders. Durbin and Schumer and all these folks were saying things like, IRS, you got to do something about these groups. They're forming, they're getting it. Remember, this is 2010. This is when we were building for, you know what happened in that election, right? We said to heck with Nancy Pelosi, and we changed who was running the House of Representatives. So this goes on for that entire year. Lois Lerner gives a speech at Duke University in October of 2010, just weeks before the election. And in that speech, she says, everybody is after us to do something now. Now think about that sentence. It's a direct quote from her speech. Who's the everybody in that sentence? Not everybody. The everybody is the president and her her political heroes, Democrat senators who are calling the IRS and calling on the IRS to do something. Everybody's asked her to do something now. What's the now? Before the election. Same time frame. We get one of the emails we do have from Ms. Lerner. She writes in an email and she says, we can't fix it now, but next year we're going to launch a C4 project. We have to be careful and make sure it doesn't look per se political, which is a fancy way of saying it is political. We're just going to try to hide the fact, right? And that's what they did. And they denied it all along. We started hearing from conservative groups who were being targeted. We actually brought Lois Lerner in. People from our personal staff and from the Oversight Committee staff sat down with her in 2012 after this had been going on for a while but hadn't yet come public. And we confronted her. And she said, no, this is just the normal course of doing business. And frankly, we didn't believe her, so we called for the Inspector General to do an investigation, which they did. About that same time, Doug Shulman, then commissioner, said, no, he can give assurances there's no targeting going on. But the Inspector General did his investigation and found that wasn't the case. And they got a draft report, the IRS got a draft report before it went public, and Lois Lerner, in unprecedented fashion, before the report goes public, 3 days before that, gives a speech to the Bar Association meeting here in town, and has a friend, planted question, ask her about this situation, and she blames, doesn't take responsibility for it, blames people in Cincinnati. Remember this, right? Lying agents in Cincinnati, 2 rogue agents in Cincinnati. So first they denied it, then they blamed someone. I mean, the whole pattern's as old as the hills. The fact is they got caught with their hands in the cookie jar, and we're trying to hold them accountable. And they've tried every excuse, blaming some other people, then going after the Inspector General saying his report was not accurate. The truth is they did it. And it's so egregious what took place, and they know they can not really getting a real investigation from the Justice Department, that Lois Lerner, even this week, was willing to talk to the press. Now think about this. She can talk to the press, she can talk to the Justice Department, but she can't answer Congress's questions and the questions the American people have. Unbelievable. And the reason she's willing to do all that, she's doing exclusive with Politico, which came out on Monday, the reason she's willing to do that is because she knows what the Justice Department, their investigation's a sham. January 13th of this year, FBI leaks to the Wall Street Journal, no one's going to be prosecuted. The president made his famous statement, Super Bowl Sunday. I mean, think about it. The head of the executive branch prejudges the entire case, says there's no corruption, not even a smidgen. And the lead attorney assigned to the case, thousands of lawyers at the Justice Department, but the lead attorney assigned to the case is Barbara Bosserman, a max-out contributor to the president's campaign. And we're supposed to believe this is a real investigation. So I'm like Tony, Eric Holder can't go fast enough, right? Now here's some good news. We did pass a resolution calling for a special prosecutor. I don't think Eric Holder's going to do it. Maybe the next guy will, or next lady will, whoever the next AG is. But the good news about that is every single Republican in the House of Representatives voted for it. More importantly, 26 Democrats. 26 Democrats went against their president, their attorney general, their administration, and said, yeah, this is so egregious, so wrong. So I think things are starting to move in the right direction. I think we're going to see it in a few weeks when the party I belong to takes back the United States Senate, and then we set the context for what's going to happen in 16. Let me finish with this. Let me just finish with this. And I speak all over our district, all over the state, frankly, all over the country. And one of the things I sense is the left always wants you to think you're in the minority. There are millions of people just like you all over the country who are doing what I said earlier, getting off the sidelines and getting in the game because they care about this country. And our nation has always risen to the occasion. Polly and I were traveling. We have a daughter who goes to school in Iowa City, a son in Madison, and some friends in Chicago. And we were driving that triangle over Easter weekend, and we're coming across Route 88, across Illinois. And Polly's driving. I'm kind of half asleep in the passenger seat, and we're driving along. And she sees this sign that says, Dixon, Illinois, hometown of Ronald Reagan. And she just whips the car off the road. And I said, what are we doing? She said, we're going to Reagan's boyhood home. And you pull in this little town, it's kind of like where we live in rural Ohio, and you pull in this little town, and just one street off the main drag is Reagan Street, and you saw what made this guy such a great leader. His humble beginnings and the values he possessed and how he was able to to articulate what made our country special. And it was just a neat, if you ever drive and do it, go see it. Two little old ladies, you give them $5 and they take you on a tour with the local historical society. It's well worth it, but it took you back to what made this guy so special and what's truly great about this country. We were, I may have shared this with you last time, but it's a story that has stuck with me. A couple years ago, we had some friends, again, capturing the kind of leadership Reagan had and then what this country is about and the makeup of its people. We had some friends a few years ago, summertime, 2 summers ago, called us up and they said, we want to go to dinner, and they're down the Dayton, Ohio area. We live just north of Dayton, and we had the evening free, so Polly and I said, yeah, we'll go down. And they said, before we go to dinner, we're going to tour the Wright brothers' home. And we said, sure, we like that. You know, the house we live in is built in 1837, so we like that kind of stuff and old homes and all. We said, yeah, we'd love to do that. And you go down, you go through the tour, and again, it's the same kind of thing, you historical side, and you go all the way through it. And the last room they take you to, it's one of the brothers' bedrooms. I can't remember which brother. But it's the last room, and you've been on about like an hour tour. And in this last room, they show you 2 pictures. The first picture is that first flight, Kitty Hawk 1903, in this contraption they call it an airplane, flew like 101 feet. You were like, how did they get the thing off the ground? But it's, the first flight. And you saw the picture, okay, I remember that. Remember from whatever grade in school, you learn those kind of things. They put that down. The next picture they hold up, 44 years later, 1947, Chuck Yeager breaking the sound barrier. Now think about that. This country, with people just like you, in 44 years, 2 guys flying 100 feet in a contraption they called a plane, to Chuck Yeager breaking the sound barrier. It's an amazing place. It is an amazing place. They put that down. They put that picture down, and I'm walking out the door, and literally it hit me. I'm like, we're in Ohio. I represent Wapakoneta in New Knoxville, Ohio. Why in the heck did they stop there? They should have had the third picture, right? Because 22 years later, 1969, another American, another Ohioan, stepped on the moon. So you think about this country in 66 years, 2 guys flying 100 feet to putting a man on the moon. It is truly the greatest nation ever. And there is nothing, there is no policy, no crazy, goofy thing that this administration can do that we can't overcome if we're willing to remember the values that made us special in the first place. And there is an attitude that has always characterized this nation. I think it's best summed up in my favorite scripture verse, 2 Timothy 4:7. Paul's writing to Timothy. It's like the older guy giving advice to the younger guy. And Paul says to Timothy, fight the good fight, finish the course, and keep the faith. It's a verse of action. It is a verse associated with America. We have always been a nation of action. When it looks tough, when the obstacle's big, we rise to the occasion because we fight, we finish, and we keep faith in the values that made this country special. That's why this day is so important, this organization is so important, and what you're doing is so critical to our great country remaining the greatest nation in history. God bless you. Have a great day.